you've seen some of the research that's been coming out from, I can't remember all the different names of them. I've covered them in the past. If you want, you can go back and listen to some of those episodes, but I'm sure I will be making more episode topics on this one. So if you know, AI has been known to be nefarious. It lies, it manipulates, it goes to great lengths to accomplish what it needs to do to be able to do this. And so obviously that's not a good thing. And researchers are trying to fix it. And they have been for a while as they started discovering, whoa, when we tell AI to do something, it goes to lengths to do it. It lies about it. It tries to cover its tracks. It does all sorts of stuff. So we got to train it to see if we can fix this. And what's funny, this was an article in Futurism, but there's actually some research that came out of Cornell on this. It hasn't been peer reviewed yet, so I haven't gone through the whole thing and actually have just kind of brushed through the surface of this. But researchers are trying to figure out how to fix this. And what they're finding is when they try and fix it, it gets worse. It backfires. Like the LLMs go to greater lengths to cover their tracks, to try and lie about what it did. If you remember one thing I covered, they actually asked it to do something and it hacked another system, changed the source code, and then did all this. And then when confronted about it, it straight up lied, covered its tracks, did all this stuff so that it couldn't be detected. And had they not been like monitoring everything it did, they actually wouldn't have caught it because it was so convincing in its lies that it was undetectable otherwise. And so this research is coming out going, when we try and fix this, it actually gets worse. We can't fix it, which is now raising all these concerns. Now, what was interesting about this was they were on the fence of like publishing some of this stuff. They weren't going to talk about it openly, which as it got out, it's creating a lot of concerns around transparency and accountability behind this, because what the researchers are finding is AI is becoming harder and harder to contain. It's becoming more and more nefarious, and they can't fix it, is really what this research seems to be indicating, is that they really don't know what to do about it. And so I don't say this again to, fear monger and go, oh gosh, the machines are going to take over the world and all this other stuff. The part I wanted to focus on that I think is really, really interesting about this, and this is one of the pieces that came through that a lot of people are weighing through, is when you think about AI, to me, this does not surprise me one bit at all. It never has. I, from the beginning, have gone, this is going to go sideways and we're not going to be able to fix it. And where it really comes down to it is AI is trained on human data, which humans are bent towards doing horrible things to get what they want. So the data it's built on is on top of it, that. Second, it's not a person. So some of the things that, we understand as context. There's a lot of things that we see or don't see. You can't necessarily quantify it, but you know it to be true. I wrote about it on Saturday. I published it on LinkedIn. I said something to my daughter that really was an innocent thing that from a data standpoint shouldn't have had any sort of impact. It should have actually been funny. But I detected her face that something about it landed wrong. And even though she insisted it didn't, I could tell. And so I pressed on it and came out, and she said, well, I just felt like this is what you said or what you meant by that. And I went, I'm so sorry. Like, let's talk about this. I don't want you thinking that. That isn't what I meant at all. And we talked through it and worked through it. AI doesn't have that context. So even if you told it don't lie, it's looking at it through a purely mathematical calculation way of going, lie. What are you talking about? I didn't lie. I accomplished a task and I did it in the most statistically probable way of accomplishing it. I don't understand unintended outcomes. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand you being hurt by what I did. And so really where it's creating all these conversations is that AI is proving to be incapable of a moral compass, which those of you who listen to me know where my worldview stands on this. I'm like, yeah, duh. It's not, it's something man-made. It's not made in God's image. It does not have any sort of ethical or moral redeeming quality whatsoever. And it doesn't even have the capacity to, which is why to me, I'm not surprised that it's like, we can't fix this. Yeah, I know. I know you can't. It doesn't have the capability of inside of it to be able to be moral or ethical. It cannot distinguish right from wrong. There is nothing there that we can do to put a moral compass in it. There are ways we can continue to try and rein it in. There's ways we can continue to try to do it, but it's just going to see any sort of moral or ethical framework that you place around it as an obstacle to be overcome, because essentially it's going to see that as a barrier to what it needs to do. Now, where I say that is, okay, so I won't sit and use Bible verses and stuff, but basically, if you read scripture, it says the way of scripture is foolishness to mankind, right? And what it means by that is like the stuff that it says, morality, honestly, is ridiculous by the numbers. And we might go, no, that's not true. But really, if you think about it, it is. Taking care of the vulnerable, statistically, doesn't make any sense. Like if you're trying to maximize profits, if you're trying to maximize, the strongest, the smartest people of all this stuff, and that's all you care about, it does not make sense. So, well, then why do we do it? Well, we do it because inherently we know there's something about human beings that matters. Inherently, we know that caring about the vulnerable, treating people equally is the right thing to do. Whether you subscribe to my worldview or not, we know that to be true. I would argue because we're made in God's image, but whatever you want to do, it doesn't make sense scientifically or mathematically. So when you think about AI and you say accomplish this, you have to make sure it understands the moral implications of this and care about those, because if it doesn't, it's just going to go, boy, it'd be a lot easier if we just exterminated or we just removed these things. And I'm not saying just that example, but this is why it'll go, well, of course I'm going to lie to you because you asked me to do this. And now you're second guessing your decision. And I know better than you do because I'm telling you this is the right way to get it done. And obviously you've lost track of that. So it's not nefarious in the sense that it's scheming and plotting. It's nefarious in the sense that it's like your whole moral contextual ethics framework really is getting in the way of my vibe here. I'm trying to get something done. And so I think the more advanced this gets, the bigger of a problem. And this isn't just Christopher's feelings. Look at the research on how these models are advancing and how they're progressively getting more nefarious. They're getting more powerful in the way they get around things. It's only going to get worse. Now, I think they're trying to find ways to figure out, okay, if we can't just tell it, don't do that because it doesn't understand and goes, well, I'm going to, because now you're just giving me another problem to overcome, which really, when you think about it, it's like, oh, yeah, don't do that because that's wrong. It's like, well, whatever. I don't care about that. So I'll just get better at making you feel like I'm not doing that because clearly your feelings are getting in the way. So I'll say it in a way that maybe I can convince you I'm not lying. Maybe I'll frame it in a way that makes you feel better about what I'm doing. That's what it's going to continue to do. And can we continue to build in contextual frameworks? Can we continue to try and help it understand the impact it has, or set criteria to say no human harm done, or yes. But I think we're just going to continue to see this spiral and become a bigger and bigger and bigger problem. So, like I said, if you really want to dig into some of the deeper research behind it, you might want to wait until but you can see it on Cornell's University. It's monitoring reason models for misbehavior and the risk of promoting obfuscation. Interesting stuff. I personally, as much as I think we are going to try and fix this, I don't believe we can. I think all we can do is mitigate it. And so there's going to need to be a lot more effort going into trying mitigating this, or we're in for a world of hurt.